What's up, everybody? Couch Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Valorant video. And in this video, we gotta talk about the freaking massive Johnny Sin size patch in patch 3.0. We have been waiting for this patch to happen for so damn long, and it just changes absolutely everything. And we broke down one of the huge parts of this patch, which is the movement changes, the weapon changes, the aim changes in our previous video. So go check that out if you haven't seen it. But in this video, we gotta talk about all the weapon changes, all the agent changes, and the new agent as well. There's just a lot to freaking talk about, so make sure you smash that like, subscribe, and right now has never been a better time to get that GameLeap premium sub with our special 50% off sale. We're gonna be doing tons of breakdowns over all the weapons and the new agent, so go check it out right now while the iron is hot. But without further ado, let's jump into the video. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the change to all agents. So signature abilities now only provide a minimum of 1 charge per round instead of accumulating a charge every round. For example, if you have 2 charged signature abilities and you end the round with 1 charge remaining, you will not gain an additional charge. Charges gained from cooldowns are now always temporary. Visibility returns faster during the fade out period of all flashes. Now I really quickly want to talk about the second part of that, which is the fact that the fade out period disappears for all flashes. Flashes are actually just less powerful across the board, and I think that this is actually a direct response to the fact that they keep adding flash characters into the damn game. With characters like Breach and Sky getting buffs, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and characters like Yoru getting reworks, and of course characters like KO adding to the game that have flashes. There's just so many flashes, and they're kind of nerfing the power level of all of them, but they are buffing other aspects, which we'll talk about. But let's talk about the first agent on our list, which is Astra. Her Nova Pulse, the cooldown time got increased from 12 to 25 seconds. The Gravity Well cooldown got increased from 12 to 25 seconds. And the stars in Astra form are now inactive when placed during the buy phase. When the barriers drop, her stars charge for 1.4 seconds before becoming active and usable. On attack, Astra can see the spike's location in astral form. That's pretty cool. This representation does not animate it, so it will not provide additional info on the status of the spike. Never mind, not cool. Recall cooldown increased from 8 to 15. Granted signature charges decreased from 2 to 1. Star cost decreased from 200 to 150. Now, I got so much to talk about in this video that I can't harp on this too much, but holy shit, they neutered this character. Like, what the actual fuck did they do to Astra? 15-second recall cooldown? Are you kidding me? The cooldown time is increased from 12 to 25 for both Nova Pulse and Gravity Well. That's more than double the time on each ability. And the fact that you can't use her stars for 1.4 seconds before becoming active after the barriers drop means you can't do any insta combos anymore. So there's a lot that Astra can't do. So yeah, what the fuck? This character's trash. Or is she? Find out in our tier list. Smash the like and subscribe so you don't miss out for that in a little bit. The next thing that we gotta talk about is Breach. Flashpoint total charges reduced from 3 to 2, but the cost got increased from 200 to 250, and the projectile speed got decreased from 2500 to 2000. Now his fault line, the full charge time got decreased from 1.5 to 1 second. The width increased from 600 to 750. The telegraph windup time got decreased from 1.3 to 1. The concussion duration got increased from 3 to 3.5. The unequipped time after firing decreased from 1 to 0.7. The cooldown time got increased from 35 to 40. On top of that, Aftershock now explodes 3 times with each blast dealing 60 damage with no fall off. Blasts are now 0.6 seconds apart. Explosion radius increased from 260 to 300. Unequipped time after firing decreased from 1.1 to 0.9 seconds, and the cost got increased from 100 to 200. And Rolling Thunder, the width of all explosions increased to 2300, which was the previous width of the final explosion. Breach is just really a lot different. I mean, they're taking away some of the power from his flashes and they're adding it to different parts of his kit, and I'm actually really excited to play Breach, and he's gonna be an AoE denial hero, right? He's gonna force people out of cubbies, and he's not gonna be punishing people as much in open space, but rather just being able to clear out a site really well or take some angles away from enemies so that the duelists have a much easier time getting in. The next character we gotta talk about is Brimstone. Incendiary cost got increased from 200 to 250. I don't understand. I just don't understand. Cypher, the Neural Theft ultimate points required decreased from 7 to 6. Now, while that is tiny, Cypher's actually nuts now because we got to talk about the next change, which is Jett, where she can no longer dash through his freaking trips, which actually just super buffs Cypher. And you might think I'm being overhyping or whatever, but no, really, Jett just like shit on Cyphers, really, consistently. And Jett was so good, and Jett's not only getting nerfed, but she can no longer dash through Cypher trips, which is just huge for the character. Wouldn't be surprised if Cypher sees more pick rate, but who knows, we'll put him on our tier list. The next character we gotta talk about is Jett. Updraft cost increased from 100 to 150. Tailwind no longer breaks Cypher Chopwire. We talked about that. Cloudburst cost increased from 100 to 200. Bladestorm ultimate points required increased from 6 to 7. Now, these are all shitty, and I know that, but when we get to the weapons, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but the Operator is actually usable now at 4,700 credits instead of 5,000, and Jett uses the Operator better than any other character. So really, I think that they needed to do this so that Jett wouldn't be completely oppressive, and I think that Jett is still gonna be good, assuming that you are using the Operator and abusing the Operator, and yeah, I definitely think that Jett is gonna be just fine because of the weapon changes. The next character we gotta talk about is Killjoy. Alarm bot cooldown after pickup increased from 7 to 20. That's actually really big. Turret cooldown increased after pickup from 10 to 20. That is also big. So this kind of balances Killjoy because I think Killjoy was way ahead of Cypher, and because of that one Jett change, Cypher got a little better, actually quite a bit better, and then this actually hurts Killjoy by quite a bit as well. So I think these characters are much closer balanced than they were previously. Omen Paranoia got decreased from 400 to 300. His Dark Cover granted signature charges reduced from 2 to 1. Omen now must buy his second smoke for 100. Cooldown time increased from 35 to 40. Trident Step cost increased from 100 to 150. Now, that's really bad. The Dark Cover is actually a really big deal. Signature charges reduced from 2 to 1. That actually kind of sucks. And the fact that he has to buy his second smoke for 100, that's a really big deal, honestly. I'm not entirely sure where Omen will actually end up. I still think he's going to be really good, mainly because Astra got completely neutered and Brimstone is still trash and they're nerfing him. So I don't know. I think Omen is actually quite a bit weaker than he was before, but a lot of the other controller options are weaker as well. So maybe he'll still see quite a bit of play. We'll have to wait and see because you have to have at least one controller on your team. Now, the next thing that we got to talk about is Phoenix. Curveball got increased from 200 to 250. Small change. Not sure why they did it, but it won't affect your gameplay that much. Raise the model update. Model has been updated with Polish Pass. Don't really know what that means. Boombot cost increased from 200 to 400. That's a huge deal. Showstopper increased the ultimate points required to 7 to 8. That's still kind of sucks, but it's not that big of a deal. But the Boombot change, that is just awful. If you want to use the Boombot, you can no longer buy a ghost, and that being so damn expensive, holy, I really think that hurts Raze because that's Raze's most powerful ability, and the fact that you have to pay a whopping 400 for it, that can really add up over time. Now, that being said, Raze is one of those characters that can utilize like cheaper weapons, and eco buys better than a lot because she has mobility and she has a lot of really powerful utilities. So I understand why they made this change, but it definitely does hurt Raze mains, and Flights is like flying through the air crying right now, so feels bad. Now the next character that we gotta talk about is Reyna. The Lear cost increased from 200 to 250, got the Phoenix treatment, pretty much the same. My opinion's the same there. Sage Slow Orb cost increased from 100 to 200. Barrier Orb cost increased from 300 to 400. Resurrection ultimate points required increased from 7 to 8. Now this is just like a nerf across the board for Sage. Now, I know that some of you might be freaking out about this, but if you look at the statistics for the win rates of Sage, Sage had like some of the highest win rates in ranked period. And I do think that while this is like gonna hurt her a little bit, I think a lot of other characters also got nerfs. There's gonna be a lot of different shakeups in the meta, and I think that Sage might end up being fine. And if she's not, she can always get buffs later, so don't freak out right now, even if your main got nerfed quite a bit. The next character that we gotta talk about is Skye. Trailblazer, vision radius increased from 1750 to 2250. Max concussion duration increased from 3 to 4. Cost increased from 200 to 250. Guiding light charges reduced from 3 to 2. Charges now replenished on a 40-second cooldown. Skye no longer needs to re-equip the trigger to her flash. Guiding light projectile now goes around corners tighter with free flying and is more responsive to guiding. The cost of charges increased from 100 to 250. Now we already talked about Skye's changes in depth in a previous video, but ultimately Skye is going to be a much different type of character. First off, she can peek with her flashes a lot better now, which means that she's more aggressive of a character. She can kind of fill that pseudo duelist role, and because she gets her charges on a cooldown, she can use her flashes a little bit more like to get information rather than just like perma-flashing enemies. So she could like hypothetically just throw one out early and maybe get some information with it, and then later on she'll get 2 of them back. so she doesn't have to be afraid of just kind of wasting them. And all in all, Skye is actually going to be quite a bit buff from this patch, so definitely keep her on your radar because I think she's going to be one of the best characters for this. Wait, I'm spoiling the tier list. What the fuck? Next up, we got to talk about Sova. Shock Dart cost increase from 100 to 150. Recon Bolt cooldown increase from 35 to 40. Owl Drone cost increase from 300 to 400. Hunter's Fury ultimate points required increase from 7 to 8. Now, even with all these changes, Sova is still freaking good. He's like one of the best agents in the game, and that's not going to change. And it seems like a lot of characters are kind of getting nerfs across the board. Really, what it looks like with this patch, what Riot is trying to do is trying to make it so gunplay matters a lot more than abilities. They're doing like a huge nerf to characters and character abilities and an overall buff to weapons. And even though weapons are a little bit more difficult to use, like we talked about in the previous video, they are buffing weapons overall. So I think Sova's going to be just fine. We're going to have to wait and see exactly how he plays, but I know that this is a nerf, but Sova's still going to be tier 1. Now, next up, we got to talk about Viper. Duration reduced from 8 to 6.5 on her Snakebite. Outer edges of Viper pad acid form faster to ensure it is lethal if an enemy sits in the entire duration. Cost increased from 100 to 200. Now, it kind of seems like the first and second almost cancel each other out because the patch forms faster, so it will lethal someone even though it doesn't last as long, but it does cost a little bit more. Still, more nerfs to abilities, kind of goes with the theme. Now, Yoru, his blindside cost got increased from 200 to 250. Gate crash cooldown time increased from 35 to 40. Now, remember, Yoru has rework plans in motion, so he's gonna look fundamentally different, and while he's probably still trash, he's gonna be completely different after a couple of patches, so we're not gonna talk about him too much. Now, I already talked about a lot of the weapon changes, including the walking accuracy and the running accuracy. We talked about in the previous video, including tagging. You definitely don't want to miss out, so go check that out right now. But I did really quickly want to talk about the weapons, because a lot of them have different price changes, and that's really what I want to talk about. Specifically, like the Frenzy is now from 500 to 450. The Judge got a price increase from 1600 to 1850, and now the damage fall off at 10 meters changed from 13 per pellet to 10 per pellet, and the damage fall off at 15 meters changed from 10 per pellet to 7 per pellet. So we don't know exactly how this is going to feel, but ultimately the Judge is going to be a lot less effective from those mid ranges, and it's really going to be a more close range gun unless the enemy is like one shot. And at a heftier price total, you're not going to be able to run it as much, and it's going to be more punishing to run it and not get any value with it. So I do think that a lot of people have been complaining about the Judge, and most people are going to be happy with this change overall, except for Daz nerf, but at the very least, Jets can't dash through your trips anymore, so you got that going for you. Next up, we got to talk about the Bulldog. The hip fire, or the full auto mode firing rate, got increased from 9.15 RPS, rounds per second, to 9.5, and the price got decreased from 2100 to 2050. Now, honestly, this makes the Bulldog feel a lot more competitive. It's probably going to be able to kill a little bit faster, which you're going to really feel, especially at that lower price point. I feel like a lot of people just don't use the Bulldog at all, and I'm glad its full auto mode is getting a buff. Shorty decreased 50 from 200 to 150. Stinger decreased from 1100 to 950. Bucky from 900 to 850. Marshall from 1000 to 950. Ares from 1600 to 1550. But the operator 5000 to 4700. I talked about how this is very pivotal. This is very, very important. And I think we're doing a weapon tier list as well, talking about it, because sniping is back on the menu, boys. It hasn't been for a while, but this puts it at a competitive enough price that sniping is really going to be a big deal. And you got to make sure that you are either ready to counter an operator or ready to use it, because I promise you, people are going to be whipping out a lot more in this episode than they have in the last one. Now, on top of that, there's been performance updates and a whole bunch of different quality of life changes that we can't break down in this video, but you can go read the full patch notes in the description down below. But go to the GameLeap website right now for a special 50% off sale. If you really want to surpass your limits and climb, there's never been a better opportunity at the start of a new episode with new rank changes. You're going to be able to dominate with the GameLeap Premium sub at a fraction of the cost. So go check it out down below. But thank you so much for coming by. Go check out my personal Halo channel, Coach_Mills, if you support your boy, and subscribe. I love your faces, and I'll see you next time.